Hello, hello.
Yo.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Hello.
My name is Amanda Wildman, and I am so glad to have you guys at the Smart Stage Talk. We are going to talk about raising the bar for excellence, introducing CEDIA's new networking certification, talking about certification in general. My name is Amanda Wildman. I am an integrator out of Ada, Michigan. TruMedia is my company. I also happen to volunteer, and I am part of CEDIA's board of directors, and I sit on CEDIA's certification commission. I have a lovely panel with me here today. I'm going to go down and introduce everybody. First and foremost, we have Matt Adams. Matt here is the program coordinator for Smart Building Technology at Houston Community College from Houston, Texas. Besides him, we have Bjørn Jensen, the CEO and founder of WhyReboot out of Miami, Florida. After him, we have Matt Manalis, the CEO of Experience One and Livigi in Brisbane, Australia. And then I'm joined by Pete Trauth, CEO of Nirvana Home Entertainment from Los Angeles, California. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so very much for joining me today. So we're going to talk a little bit about networking, and I know for sure for Pete and Matt and myself, being part of the certification commission, this has been our life for the greater part of, what, the last almost 5 years now, I think?
About a millennium, yeah.
Yeah, about a millennium. And then, of course, you know, Bjørn came out of the womb knowing everything about networking, so, like, he's the godfather of it all. Let's start just a minute. I want to let everybody know what exactly is CEDIA certifications. So let's take them back a little bit to about a millennium ago when we decided to start the certification journey. Pete, why don't you tell me a little bit about what are CEDIA certifications, why are they important, before we go into what the new stuff is?
Sure. Well, so to me, CEDIA certifications at that time, I had just finished getting. I want to say it's 4 different no, I think it was 3. It was 3 certifications, and I got them all around the same time. I just really dove in. I think after I got the first one, I kind of had like certification fever or something. I don't know, but so this was a previous version of the whole certification program, and this was like pre-2020. It all changed, and this is it's a completely new program now. You know, there is still one exam, I think, that's a older exam, and that's the ESCD. Maybe the ESCN is still being offered right now. I know it's in transition. This one that we're talking about today is going to be replacing that. So just since then. You know, it's been a pretty wild ride, but we've revamped it from the ground up. You know, kind of thinking again about what each one of the different parts of the integrator role are, and as they go through their path and their career, what each step is, and so that's how we kind of tried to mold this new program. And we went through the cabling and infrastructure first, so all the the people who are going out and doing the pre-wiring and involved in like the physical hanging of objects and all the heavy duty stuff, getting that under their belt first, and then going on to the more electronic side of it with the IST. And now we're getting into more specialty areas with networking. So I'm really excited about where it's going. I think that this is going to kind of open the door to some more specialist exams and certifications. And I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Well, and part of that process, Matt, because you were there kind of from pretty much the very beginning as well, is I think Dennis Erskine was the one that was kind of the brainchild, kind of gathered all of us misfits together, right, to put this together, along with David Whitney, who's our CEDIA staff member, who heads this up and takes care of it all for us. But part of that process was getting ANSI and ISO accredited. Could you speak to that a little bit? Because that was the first time, that happened for CEDIA, and what exactly does that mean?
Yeah.
it was a huge learning curve for me because I'd never been involved in writing or creating exams. And what I learnt very quickly is how important it was to get that ANSI accreditation and the rigorous process, I guess, that's involved in making sure that it meets those standards. For me, being up from 1 a.m. till 3 a.m. Every fortnight to write the exams, I was like, wow, that's a lot. We did, I think it was like 12 months of going through CIT and then another 6 or 7 months for IST. Working with a psychomatician, did I get that right? Yeah, such a cool name for a job. Going through that process and really actually finding out the best way to write a question, but also then writing the distractors to make sure that they are hard enough or not too easy or not too hard for the exam takers. So that actual whole process was incredible, but I think it's paid off because everybody sitting the exams is actually enjoying them.
Yeah, and part of that whole ANSI and ISO accreditation, it made it very important that we were global. I know that in the past, previously, a lot of people, one of the things is, we're a global association, but our exams and our certifications seem to be very America-centric, maybe even a little bit Midwest America-centric. So part of that entire process was, making it more global. So could, you guys were part of that process. Could you maybe both kind of speak to that a little bit, how that whole process went through to make it global?
I think the first time we were doing CIT and somebody wrote a question about a nail plate. I'm like, what the hell is a nail plate? I'm sitting there Googling it and I couldn't even find what you guys were talking about. So I'm just like, what is a nail plate? Like, I must have sounded like the biggest idiot. But we don't use them in Australia. And then it just went on from there, like different types of bolts and nuts and the things that everybody around the world call things different names. And then obviously the people from Europe were involved as well, and we had someone from India at one stage. So yeah, like actually making the exams global was a lot more challenging than I think anybody actually thought it was going to be. But it really highlighted, especially to probably the American audience, how American-centric it actually was.
What's a router?
I've got no idea. That's a UK term.
Another big one like that was the lag bolt.
Yeah.
In the U.S., you say lag bolt, and anybody in this industry knows what you're talking about. Anybody in building knows what you're talking about. We must have spent about a half hour with this group of like 13 amazing minds all together in this room, and everybody's arguing back and forth about what a lag bolt is. And it's you've got these 4 different countries, and they're all like, well, I've never heard of a lag bolt. We have nothing like that. Like, what is it?
Yeah, I feel like half the time it was almost like show and tell. It was almost easier to like, I remember a couple days when we were writing questions, we were all like taking our toolkits with us and we were like, no, this is what I mean in this question. And it felt like half of the class and, when we were putting it together was like show and tell time, not just question writing time. But I think that, for members out there and integrators and even manufacturers, like why is that important is it really gave us the opportunity to have a common language base. Like when you're taking these levels of certification, and that's been very different, when you go to a CIT, cabling and infrastructure technician, or integrated systems technician, and now the residential networking specialist, all of those are designed to give us a common language across the globe, so that when manufacturers start talking about stuff using that language, we all know it's no longer going to have to be that show and tell type of thing. So now let's talk a little bit about moving on to the Residential Networking Specialist certification. Now that is a new one. It's a revamp that we're working on. And I'm super excited on this one because we do have Bjørn from WhyReboot, a manufacturer. We really focused on bringing in some manufacturers into this one. And Bjørn, could you explain to me, why do you think that that's important to have the manufacturers involved, and why do you think it was important to update a networking certification for this industry, for CEDIA? Like, why wouldn't somebody just go to like CNA, all of the other ones that are out there, a Cisco one? Why isn't that enough? Why was it important for CEDIA to get involved in developing their own?
Well, I think certainly it's always good to get a CCNA as just a basic thing, but what we're trying to do here is do something at that level that is tuned to this industry. So back in like 2012 or 2013, I was asked to come in as on the CEDIA IT task force, and we wrote a bunch of advanced networking courses that had never been here before. We collaborated on all of them, spent days and nights, a lot of time over years, and we were proud of those courses. The problem is that when we're writing those questions, it's nothing like what we're doing now with these specialists that show you how to write questions correctly, the process, mapping it all out. We were kind of just like cowboys, just like, hey, this is what you need to know. This is how we're going to teach it. And it was great. People loved it. And I think the credential was good, but it wasn't as recognized because it's just a bunch of cowboys just writing some stuff, Now it's got structure. Now it has, global focus. And I think people can take this one seriously. And I'm actually really proud of all the work that everybody's done because it really is a higher level. And it's obvious that it is. And anyone that passes that exam is going to be able to find a job somewhere, whether it's an entry-level job, whether it's a little bit higher. It proves that they know what they're doing. And I mean, it's not going to be easy,
Well, and with it being like the backbone, right, of the home, the network is like the breathing, the central nervous system, right, of the home. Everybody needs a good network. We did get some updated numbers, Matt, because we had our first beta test here. And we've gotten some feedback, and I know you followed up with David Whitney to ask about that. So would you mind sharing, like, what's some of the feedback we're hearing of this new networking specialist?
Yeah, I caught up with David about a couple of hours ago and just asked, what the feedback was from yesterday with the first bunch of people that have sat the new RNS exam, and it's all positive. They said it's an exam that is going to set the bar. It's going to elevate everybody in the industry, and it's something that we needed. One gentleman took the exam from last year, which is the old exam, and took the new exam and said, yeah, hands down, way better. So it's great feedback. I think we've had over 50 people signed up to sit the RNS beta exam total. How many sat it here? 15 sat it here. Awesome. And now we've got over 1,000 CEDIA certified people globally. 420 CIT, 220 IST, 150 hold the old networking exam. Hopefully they'll all update to the new one. And then 130 ESCD certified people.
That's a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seeing as it's a very difficult exam and nobody has had any training on what's on it, they're just taking the exam as a beta. How many people passed? Do we know?
We don't have a pass score yet. We've got to set that.
Yeah, we don't have the pass score yet. So that is actually part of the process is taking the beta exam. When you work with a psychometrician, you have to pull in all of the beta, testing, see where everybody is. There has to be we have to determine what's going to be a viable pass rate for that, and then we set kind of that metric, and then each year that gets reevaluated. We reevaluate the questions that are on the exam. We make sure that the material is updated, and that's part of having that ANSI and ISO accreditation. So it really is, like you said, as opposed to the cowboys out there, it is much more of a robust update. It's a much more robust, legitimate how the process works, what the test scores are, where people hit on that. So we don't even have that set up yet. But speaking of the beta test, I know that that's currently available. So Matt, do you want to share a little bit more about that? Do you know any more about the beta test? How long that's out?
How long it's out?
Yes.
Is it another month? Yeah, month? September 30th, there you go. I should have got that information.
Yeah, so through September 30th, you guys have the opportunity to sit the beta test, provide your feedback. That's really how we're going to kind of get that base level of knowledge. So I know that in the past, when we were dealing with CIT and IST, people were like, I don't need to take it. But that beta test is super important because, again, that's what kind of allows us to have that baseline out there to know what's the expectation. Are we writing questions that are too difficult? Are we writing questions that are too easy? Because it's not just about studying for the test, but it's really about making sure we have competence. I know, Bjørn, you and I had a conversation about that. Does a paper and a certification, if it's just a test and you're teaching to just the test, does it mean that you have a level of competence? And I think that that's part of what this whole process is now with that ANSI and ISO accreditation.
It's actually interesting how much you learn about writing tests because it's way more difficult than what you would think. Because you can write a question and then you know the right answer, but then you have to come up with wrong answers that aren't just gimmies, right? And that gets really difficult.
And it's $50, so get out. It's almost free. $50 to take the exam, and you're helping to make the exam better for everybody else.
And that's specifically for the beta, and if you're a CEDIA member. I don't think it's the same if you're not a member, right?
It is.
Oh, it is. That's
It
great.
is for right now through September 30th.
So that's,
If it should be on this panel.
You know, if it's an exam that you may end up taking someday, take it now, because $50, it's kind of hard to pass that up. And really quick too, just to offer like kind of a frame of reference to what we mean when we talk about that there's a lot that goes behind this, is that just figuring out that cut score of who passes and who doesn't pass, just that one little element alone will take days. I mean, we'll sit and kind of, we'll go through so many different metrics, and all of this is going through a professional that works just on these metrics, the psychometrician, and it's huge. I mean, it's a big undertaking just to figure out the passing score. So there really is a lot of work that goes into it. There's a lot of thought that goes into an exam like this, and we've been just 100% the whole way through. And
Yeah, I mean,
I'm proud of
ultimately
it.
the goal is that when you pass that exam, you have a level of competence that, you know, the homeowners can hire you confidently, that companies and manufacturers can hire you competently, that manufacturers that you work with know that you have a base level of knowledge. That helps them to be able to develop software and to be able to develop products better. So speaking of all of that and learning, I'm super excited, Matt, to have you here. Matt Adams is from Houston Community College. And Matt, you are starting a brand new program, first of its kind in the United States. And I had the opportunity to meet a couple of your students that are just starting the course. I want to know, could you share with us, like, what is this course that you're doing at the community college? Why are you excited about it? And why are you excited to be partnering with CEDIA as part of that?
If you would have asked me 3 years ago, I didn't even realize any of this existed. There's words can't express the journey I've taken to get to this point. It was kind of on a fluke anyway that I started on this journey. And so through the journey, I've met a lot of incredible people, and I'm really honored to be on an Amanda Wildman panel, which is so cool, and be with these great people. And
Don't worry, they're way smarter than I am. It's okay.
can I copy off of them? So one of the things trying to figure this out, you know, launching a whole degree plan, because one thing I told my college, you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. Trying to figure out what this was, number one, this is an industry that doesn't technically exist anywhere. Department of Labor, nothing. I mean, I've been program coordinator for 8 years, and that's one of my jobs is to build curriculum, build degrees, align them with industry standards. This one, I had nothing to work with, and it was tough. And there were times when it got kicked down for different things, and I never thought that I would actually be standing here. And 2.5 weeks ago when we went live, it's just, this is my third CEDIA, just thinking about the potential in this and what this is going to mean. But even more so talking about credentials of value from an organization like CEDIA, where I've got accrediting boards just like anybody else. And so I can align my classes by things, but the best thing to ever align by is industry standards. So where I'm teaching them things, now I've got CEDIA's CIT, IST, the networking and things, backing them up saying this is standardized what they know, but also it's doing a great job to help say that I can produce a consistent product, you know, because that's part of, there's a lot of pressure on this. Even though I'm live, what am I going to produce? Because at the end of the day, if I'm producing horrible students, that's not going to help anybody in this industry. That's going to make their jobs way harder, because now they're part of the problem. Versus if I can produce somebody that's got solid fundamentals, somebody that they can take and build on, build building blocks, to make them stronger. That's going to help this industry do way more. Plus, the other thing I love is the fact with CEDIA, I tell my students, where would you like to work? I mean, that is such a weird concept, because normally being a community college, a two-year college, we're thinking, you work in Houston, right? But this one, it's like, where can't you work? Anywhere on the planet. And so CEDIA can make that available to us, which is great. And we're working on finishing up our educational agreement, and I'm very excited about it. I mean, the potential on partnering with CEDIA, what that brings to us. The validity for our program, but also just what that's going to help my students get accomplished is groundbreaking. And I know this is being recorded, so for those of my students, which is really cool because I get to say this, do your homework.
Absolutely.
Okay? And that's
Your
such
homework.
a neat concept for this, because I've got students. I've got 16 of them, and we're growing. In fact, I've already gotten a call from another student from Knoxville, Tennessee, that the mom wants him to move to Houston to come take my classes, which is so groundbreaking. But then the other thing is looking at what we're teaching, not just doing like AV or anything else. We're trying to give a full mix with security and fire and audiovisual and lighting, because there's so many different areas of this problem to tackle for the modern smart home and integrated technology. So it's a deep rabbit hole. It's a cool rabbit hole.
And no pressure, but you're our guinea pig. So both you and your students have to be successful, because we want to then be able to bring them up here and let them tell their story. And it doesn't do all of us volunteers any good to be creating and developing a product if it's not something that we can help teach, get competence out there, and get people in really good jobs and really, really good careers. So speaking of that, Bjørn, I'm going to let you actually answer this next one first, is how can businesses and companies or integrators out there, do you think, utilize or leverage having the networking certification or certifications in general and that level of competence to make their business be better?
I mean, there's the obvious things. They can put the logo on their email or their website, right? But I think if they're bidding against another company, they can show, like, look, we actually have expertise in this. Like, you just want some, person going in there. You have no idea whether maybe they do have the expertise, but there's nothing to really prove that. And I think, anytime there's certifications, especially if it's something that is accepted worldwide, that has gone through standards-based things, just wasn't written by a bunch of cowboys, right? That actually took the time. As he said, every little thing gets scrutinized by so many people to make sure that it's correct. And I've been amazed, like that whole ANSI ISO thing, I was amazed at especially, I forgot what the term is for her.
Psychometrician.
She was amazing.
She's
really
awesome.
amazing.
She's amazing.
Yeah, and kept us on point and kept everything going, and it was a really eye-opening experience. And I think if people knew how much work gets put into that when they finally get that credential, it's something that they can really, show the homeowner, hey, we're the experts. Look, we have these certifications. You can trust us because we've taken the time to do it.
And Pete, how are you leveraging that within your business? Like, you earned all these certifications, you went out and did it, so you obviously think it's important, you drank the Kool-Aid, but how do you use that in your business to further your business?
Well, one of the things that we do is we do offer pay raises when somebody gets one of these new accreditations. So that's kind of an easy one for us. But the one of the bigger things that we did to challenge ourselves was to make it so that we put up a challenge to our own company to say that we wanted every single technician to be certified. And it was really rough going at first, and it took us a lot longer than I thought it would, and we made it this mandatory thing, and then had to go back on that because I didn't want to let go of any employees. But we ended up doing it though, and we finally did it this year. We got our last technician got certified, and so we're
Bravo, good
100%.
job.
Yeah.
Matt, what about you? Now, I know you have some interesting and unique challenges in Australia, but also particularly you work with the people with like disabilities and with needing help at home and aging in place and stuff. So how is networking and how are all these certifications leveraged within your business? Because you wear a lot of hats, but you also volunteer a lot. And I don't know when you sleep, but
I don't know.
I appreciate you.
I don't need a many hours sleep. So a lot like Pete, we actually offer our employees a multiplier on their hourly rate for all the levels of certification. So when they're CIT and then IST, and now we'll do RNS as well. Previously we did PCNA, which we'll probably still keep in there as well. Probably good to have both, to be honest. But then on top of that, part of the tenders that we go for, we're trying to make it mandatory in Australia to have these certifications to be able to work in projects like disability. So we're actually lobbying the government to try and force them to make that a requirement that they have to have these CEDIA certifications to even bid for these projects. Because when you're dealing with people living with disabilities or people aging in place, it's life or death. It's not just somebody can't turn their TV on anymore. It's somebody might have fallen over and they've gone to press a button and they can't call for help. That somebody could, they could die. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for all of your time. I'm going to open it up if there's any questions first, and then does anybody have any questions? Well, first, go ahead. Can you? Oh, he's going to grab you a mic. Sorry, right behind you.
What does the networking curriculum consist of?
The networking curriculum? I don't know that we fully have all the networking curriculum developed yet.
We've got the blueprint for the actual
Yes.
exam. Do we have a slide on it? Can we skip to the next slide? I can't remember if we put it in
I
there.
don't remember if we put another slide in there. We will get you the information. We do have the blueprint all set up. We're currently developing and updating all of the modules. So it will be an update from the previous one. Some of the questions are similar, but all of the questions have been rewritten and updated. And then we will have another final probably update after this beta test comes back, because during the beta testing process, sometimes we'll earmark a couple questions that will say, well, we kind of want to see how this tests. It might be something we want to see how it tests globally, because like in the States, it might be really like we fully understand it, but some of the other global people, we don't know exactly if it's going to be a language thing or whatever. So we'll wait until it goes through the beta test, and then we finally pull up all of the curriculum and get that taken care of. So we can get you a pathway for sure to help you out with that. Thank you for asking.
Thank you very much.
Yes. David's your guy right there. Make sure you talk to him. Anyone else have any questions? Yes. Sorry, he's coming over.
This question is for Matt Adams. So, are the colleges, or is your program part of an association that they're looking at you to see, hey, if it's successful, will it branch out to other colleges?
There's many different pathways on that. Right now, are you from Texas? Okay, so in Texas, besides being aligned with CEDIA, we're aligned with the Texas Burglar and Fire Alarm Association. But governance for the community college, we're kind of bound by our district area. One of my future, if you want to call it dreams or things in this that I thought about, normally you don't look at hands-on trades being kind of hands-on enough to where it's hands-on, not virtual. But during COVID, we learned a lot of lessons, and we learned how to leverage technology to still have class, because I mean you have to be real creative when you can't go to class. And so one of my thoughts is eventually and 2 to 3 years from now, once we kind of get going a little bit, maybe having an online portion where we could have proctored things in Texas, maybe around the country, because I can only speak about my community colleges. But one of the things I've been doing with CEDIA is having a lot of dialogues over the last year or so. It's great when you're the first guy through the gate. And they're like, hey, can you help other community colleges and schools get started? And that's what I'm hoping I can help do, because for me, it's been over almost 3.5 years. That's a long process, and you really have to have a lot of dedication. And of all the people I could thank the most is my wife back in Houston for being so patient through all the long nights and weekends and everything else. And it's tough. But at this point, now that I've kind of learned my lessons, I could help anybody get up and running in about a year. And so I'm hoping that more of these will pop up around the country.
And I can mention CEDIA has a workforce development working group, and what they're doing currently is identifying certain integrators if you have a community college in your area. The biggest kind of push behind it is having people that want to help and be around and support it. So for example, Matt, like when he had his students their first day, he brought in some local integrators down there, some local manufacturers, some local partners that were saying like, look, okay, Matt, you're going to teach this class and this curriculum, but we're going to be here to support you. And so I'd say if you're looking to have something like that in your area and your community, get involved with the workforce development working group. I can get you in touch with those people and say, look, I would like to look at maybe expanding that in my area. I know that I'm looking at that in Michigan. I have a little bit of constraint just because being on the certification commission, I have limitations. I can't teach like what I'm helping to write. So I have to have like a little bit of a grace period in there. But there are definitely a lot of people that are starting to have conversations with their community colleges in their area, and we're really hoping to work with, Houston Community College to be kind of that roadmap and say, okay, after your first year of doing this, what did we learn from that? How can we make it successful? How can we move this process faster? And how can we replicate it in other areas? But great question. Does anyone else have any questions?
And one other thing that I want to mention to you and anybody else that watches this is you can get alliances and relationships with any community college or trade school or college out there. And if you're talking to the deans and the presidents and all that, I'm kind of the guy, if you want to call it, in the field, in the classroom. And that's the problem. The hardest problem is finding people like me, the people that are going to start these programs that actually are going to do the hard work. Because you can talk to the presidents and provosts and chancellors and all, and they're going to say it's a great idea. But they're not about to do all the heavy lifting. So it's tough, and it's not the best paying job, but you do it because you change lives. But it's great, and it's always great as a teacher when my students graduate and they come back and they're like, guess what? And those are always great conversations. And I've had students that have called me up and they're making off my electrical degrees 6 figures, and that's a great feeling to say, I had a hand in helping shape that. And so that's what's so great about this, that I get to have that same hand. So, but don't get discouraged. I mean, it's tough, but I'm hoping this does become something that can go to other schools.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we are actually out of time. I appreciate all of your guys' questions. We'll stick around for a few minutes afterwards if anyone has any direct questions. But I just want to thank my panelists. Again, you have Pete Trauth from Nirvana. You have Matt Manalis from Experience One, Bjørn Jensen from WhyReboot, and Matt Adams from Houston Community College. My name is Amanda Wildman from TruMedia. If we can help you guys anywhere along the pathway, along your journey of earning your own certifications, helping your team, working on a program in your area, we would love to help. And as always, you can feel free to go to CEDIA's website to learn more.